Take a breath, step outside.
Very good evening to everyone. Before we kick off this evening's session, I want to take this moment to acknowledge the traditional caretakers and ancestors of these lands which we reside on here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, the Pueblo people. And I also want to acknowledge where you are beaming in from tonight, the traditional caretakers and ancestors of the lands you reside on, that we could all be here this evening. So very good evening to everyone. My name is Elena Higgins. I am the co-executive director of IndigenousWays. We are a nonprofit based here in Santa Fe, bridging cultural exchange with people globally. IndigenousWays promotes living in balance for diverse communities through music, arts, outreach, and communities. Our vision is to reach Indigenous and LGBTQ plus communities through outreach of music, the arts, and Indigenous wisdom that creates and enhances survival and sustainability. So I just want to acknowledge everyone that's just come in and beamed in from wherever you have. Thank you so much for joining us this evening in the IndigenousWays Wisdom Circle. As a nonprofit, we had a lot of projects. We go into remote Native American communities and co-create festivals and events. And because of what's happening in our climate and the world, everything got cancelled. So we knew the need was so great. So starting the 1st of April, we took all our events online, hence the virtual events. So on Wednesdays, we have the Wisdom Circle where we are now. And on Saturdays, we have the concert series, which is Native American, Indigenous, LGBTQIA artists sharing their medicine with us. So today is the 22nd of April. And what does that mean? 50 years we have known this day to be Earth Day. For Indigenous people, we have been connected to Mother Earth and honoring her through our prayers, our ceremonies. But on this day, it's Earth Day, and one of our artist who will be on in May will be Joanne Shenandoah. So when we were speaking to her today, she had just put together a beautiful medicine and song. So in the chat box, you will see a link, her link, if you want to see that a little bit later. Also in the chat box is a lot of our websites and links. And yeah, it's just wonderful that you're all here. Thank you so much in being here. So before I hand it over to my other Cohort, Tash, Terry, I just want to again welcome you all. I want to thank our 2 ASL interpreters. Now at the moment, you'll be able to see Sandra, who is interpreting, and our other interpreter for this evening is Jim. If you haven't muted your microphone, if you can do that. And if you're wondering why you can only see Sandra or myself, it's just for the purpose of recording. There's a lot of people who can't see this but want access to our ASL interpreters. And if we have everyone on, we can't see them. But don't panic, because we're going to bring everyone back in at the end if you so choose to. And just a reminder, if you want to stay anonymous, then you don't need to beam back in. But if you want to come back in at the end when we let you know, please feel free to. So I want to thank you, and I will now hand it off to my wonderful other half, Tash Terry.
Yat anis ko. She ya Tash Terry in she torich eating in shlom belagana bashishin. She ate hachi in a le. Not ani nes shit this chin. She ate ayes and loads of jindo to sade. I could astonishly. Hello, everybody. Blessings and welcome. My name is Tash Terry. I come from the Bitterwater clan, and my father came from French and Irish. My grandfather comes from Red Streak running into the water. I was born in Shiprock, New Mexico, and raised on the Arizona side, the northern side. My traditional people come from Big Mountain and Black Mountain. That's how I am a woman today. Thank you very much for being here this evening. We are so blessed to have this medium, to have this platform, to where we can share visions of hope, action, solutions, sustainable seeds. And tonight we're going to kick off our evening with our sister who is hailing in from the lands of Oklahoma. Sharon is going to open us up from with a prayer, and she comes from the Kiowa Nation. Sharon.
Hope. Hi, everybody. My name is Sharon Nickel Marcotte, and I am from the Kiowa Nation of Oklahoma. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here tonight. I'm going to lead us in prayer. Heavenly Father, I ask you to come be with us from all nations, Jesus. Bring us together as one because we are one, Lord. We thank you for this great day, this Earth Day, Lord. We're all in our own homes doing our thing, and God, we know this isolation is very important for our earth, and we ask you to bless each and every one of us, and let's take away the good from this. Thank you to the elders. Thank you for this honor. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Okay, and I wanted to just do a really quick welcome. Our beautiful elder, grandfather, uncle, brother, son, nephew, friend. In Indian world, we encompass all of these different roles as one person. And this is who Don Coyhis is. He's all of these roles, all put into one. Don Coyhis is the founder of the White Bison, also known as the Red Road to Wellbriety. I have a very, very special connection to Don's work. Don's work has helped me on a very personal level. I won't go into it at this time, but I'm forever eternally grateful to Don for his work. And he's helped many, many Indigenous people that have struggles from post-traumatic stress disorder, addiction, trauma, and Don has found a way to weave this beautiful web called recovery in the Red Road Way that has many, many, many different pathways. And it's available for us. It's a sustainable resource that's going to be here long after we are all gone. And this is like a miracle tonight that we have our beautiful brother Don Coyhis with us. So I want to go on, but I better just wrap it up on my end and hand it over to Don because we want to keep him for at least 24 hours. But unfortunately, we only have him for this hour. So thank you, Don, for being here.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Don Coyhis. I am a member of the Mohican Nation. Our reservation is in Wisconsin, and our tribe was a clan tribe. So I was born for the Turtle Clan. That's on my mother's side. Our tribe is matriarchal, and I just want to say these two young ladies that have put this together. If they ever come after you and ask you to do something, you may as well just say yes. I call them the positive mafia. You just don't tell them no. That's all they are. They're very loving people. You can't refuse them. So if you're on their list, you may as well just say yes when they come to you. That's how I see it anyway. But I love them both. And a little bit about myself. I have 9 children. I have 6 girls and 3 boys. And out of that, I have 20 grandchildren. And 1 granddaughter. I had 21 grandchildren, but we lost 1 to drugs last year. And she's the one that born the child that is our great-granddaughter. And so to this day, all my grandchildren are sober. They none of them drink, none of them do alcohol, and none of my children no more. They have no problems with alcohol. In fact, the majority of them, I think one might have wine or something once in a while, I've heard, but the rest of them are all sober. And that didn't happen overnight. And I think I got help with that sobriety I know my family was praying for me when I was drinking. And I think I got sober because of my family prayers. And at that time, my wife at that time, she joined a program called Al-Anon. And I remember the weekend when she caught on to what Al-Anon was about. My life changed tremendously when she got that program inside of herself. But I think the real reason is I had intervention from the Creator. I had one night I was out at this place and I was stumbling around and I fell off this rock, and all I said, for some reason, I asked the Creator to help me to live because I was dying. And I don't even know if I meant it. I remember saying those words out loud, and that was a turning point. And so that was 41 years ago. I was given this gift of sobriety, and it took many talking circles, many sweats, many ceremonies for my family to heal. It didn't happen overnight. It took many years of honesty, of coming together. We had family talking circles, just many, many things. So anyway, it turned out now we know that this recovery is possible, and it's a family disease. And so I always will be grateful to Al-Anon and the part that they played in helping me to get into recovery. And so I'm just really honored to be here tonight to be able to just share some things. Shortly after I got sober, I became very, very attached to a group of elders. And I don't think it happened then. I remember when I was a child, I always sat at the feet of the elders and I listened to them. I loved being around them, but they took me under their wings after I got into recovery. And so I'm just grateful that I was able to meet. Many of them have passed on now, but during that days there was Thomas Binyankan, Austin Two Moons, and some of the real old traditional people. I got to spend a lot of time with them. And so probably the way to maybe start tonight is I know one time the elders, they told me that the past is connected to the present, is connected to the future. It's all interconnected. We are where we are now because of some decisions and choices was made in the past. And today, some choices and decisions we make today, that's how the future is going to be. But what I believe that the majority of the reasons we are why we are at is that we are living on the prayers of our ancestors. Those ones that when we were babies or maybe not even born yet, they knew what was coming down. You started to see what was happening, and they were doing the ceremonies, they were doing the prayers, and some of them had insight that they would go into the spiritual world and they would pray and they would get messages and they would ask the Creator to help the babies unborn. And then when they come back, how they talk to us, what happened there is we call them the prophecies. That while they were in that spiritual world, in those ceremonies, they were told certain things, certain signs, you see, that we were to watch for. And so going into the past and taking a look at what we want to talk about tonight is, for us, there was a time when we lived in harmony with the earth. Whatever part of the earth that we lived on, if we lived in the woodlands, then all that nature, they taught us how we're supposed to be. We watched the animals, We learned about seasons, about cycles, about plants, about everything, the medicines. We learned all that. But of course, if you were in Alaska, well, then that territory, they taught them how to learn their culture. And then Canada, they learned how to do their culture. And then down south, the plains. So we're all different, except we all got our teachings off this earth. And that's what we want to talk about, that not a lot of things do I really know to be true, but some things I know to be true is, one is our earth that we live on, it's a live mechanism. It's not just like one of the other planets. This is alive. It has a life force into it. In fact, I worked along with a subcontractor, but I worked down with at NASA from Apollo 6 to Apollo 13. And it was during those days, they were developing all kind of electronic listening devices. And one of the things they discovered was that our Earth has a pulse that is a very low frequency, and it was a pulse. They could tell it was alive. And that's what the elders told us a long time ago. They said that our Earth has a heartbeat. And so even science now later on, we found out what those old people knew was true. It has a pulse, and it's a live mechanism, and we are connected to it, and it's connected to us, and so it's always kind of guiding us and giving us the teachings and lessons that we're supposed to be listening to. So at that time, we lived in harmony, and it's not that we didn't have problems. We knew how to solve problems, but our teachings was a cycle of life. When a child was born, we knew what to teach it. And as it went through the cycle of life, different teachings were given to that little boy, little girl. So they grew up to be adults. And those adults had the teachings. They grew up to be the elders. Then the elders were the people that we would go to next to God. They knew all about the ceremonies, the teachings, the right way, the wrong way, everything on how we were supposed to do things. And that was the community that we lived in. Then we had something happen to us about 1879. By then, the Europeans had came to this country, primarily on the East Coast. And when the Moor came, then they wanted the land. They wanted other things that was going on. They said we were there. So what the government at that time called it was, they called it the Indian problem. They say we have an Indian problem. And so they had meetings and things to describe what they should do with the Indian problem. One of the things that they did is they realized that when they looked at our people, that we lived in harmony with the earth, and they knew that we had a physical world. We knew about that, but we knew some things about the spiritual world. And we were considered to be like mysterious. We had the ceremonies, we had all kind of things. From their Christian view, we needed to be converted, that the things that we knew was not good. And so when they took a look at handling the Indian problem, they said, if we could just get rid of that spirituality, then we could control it. And so what they did starting in 1879 is the government built a series of boarding schools across the Indian country. And they also, from Carlisle was the first boarding school. At that school, the Canadian government came down and they studied what was going on in that school, and then they went back to Canada and they started the residential school system up there, as I understand it. And so what they did was they built 500 of these schools, and they took the children away from the parents and they put them in these schools. And what they said is, we're going to teach them how they should be like us, how they can live in the dominant culture. And so they were taken away, and instead of teaching them what we would have taught them, they weren't taught that. They were taught other things. But in that process of that boarding school, I'm not saying all boarding schools are bad, but the stories that we have heard from the boarding schools is that the children were beaten, their children were sexually abused, they were put soap in their mouth, they weren't allowed to speak their language, no ceremonies, no culture. And so as those children grew up, had their hair cut, put on uniforms, and so eventually as they grew up, they lost the ways. And so it was through that time is when we started to see the problems with alcoholism. And we started to see problems that in our communities that we didn't have before. And so by 1920, 99% of the native population here in the United States have been wiped out, have been killed off. All the native people that you see now is the rebirth out of just 1%. We almost was made extinct, but now you're starting to see something happened. The boarding school system lasted until about in the 1960s. And the reason that it quit was it was thanks to an organization of young people that formed. I believe it was started by a woman named Downwind out of Minneapolis, and she named this group called AIM, the American Indian Movement, and that seemed to be a consciousness shift where we quit walking around with our heads down and we started being proud to be Native. And so over a series of things that they did, changes started to happen in the boarding school era, primarily ended as we knew it. And so things started to change then. And so by 1970s, things were changing. By 1989 is when our organization started, White Bison started. And in 1991, we had finished just working with a tribe, and we had taken trying to help them make changes in the community. In this community, there was about 85% alcoholism. There was only one youth graduated from high school. The council was all drinking. A lot of domestic violence, sexual abuse, the bootleggers was there, and that had been in that community for a while. And so we went up there for a year and we made no progress. We were using information that we had gotten on making organizational changes. And so by then I was mentored in my recovery by a man named Johnny Looking Cloud. And so I told him what was going on and I was going to quit. And what he said was, he said, before you quit, gather together the elders. And so we did. We gathered together 40 elders from throughout the United States. We had a gathering in a place in the mountains of Colorado. And we explained to them what we were doing and how it wasn't working. And we made the statement, I said, I think it's too late. It's sort of like if you have a plant and you go on vacation, there comes a time when it's too late. Don't matter how much water you put on it, that plant's dead. That's how I felt was going on in these communities. And as we talked to these elders, they said, no, they said, it's not too late. They said, where did you get to your information that you were looking at? And I said, well, from Google. And they said, oh, no wonder. They said, what you're looking for is not in the Google. So they said, you go home and you tell the people to gather the elders and you ask them, what did your grandma and grandmas teach you? What did they tell you the communities was like? How did they raise children in the old days? How did you parent it? How did you elect leaders? Ask them these questions. So that's what we did. So you go back and you talk to the elders. There was 80 and 90, and they were going back telling themselves what their ancestors, what their grandpa and grandmas told them. And that was the start of the healing process when we found out that we were looking in the wrong place for the information. And so through that, they started to guide us in healing these communities. And so they started giving us some laws and some guidance over the next years. And then in 1991, we had this gathering, and they started to tell us about a healing time that was going to happen. And so they were talking like this, and I remember they said, if you have a question, you'll raise your hands. And so I raised my hand, and I said, I have a question. I said, this doesn't seem like a healing time to me, because there was alcoholism and there was violence. Many things was going on in our community. We were not getting people sober. And what they told us, they said this, they said, a long time ago, they said, the Creator came to Turtle Island. And he gathered the people together and he said, I'm going to divide you into 4 directions, red, yellow, black, and white. Into the red direction, he said, I'm going to write inside of your being the knowledge about the earth, about the plants, about the animals. You are going to be the keepers of this earth, of the land. And he said to the yellow people, he said, you are going to be keepers of the air or the breath or the wind or the meditation. Into the black direction, he said, you are going to be keepers of the water. Into the white direction, he said, and you are going to be the keepers of the fire. Those 4 elements. Then the instructions were we were to go through the cycles of time and gain knowledge in this assignment that we were given with the original teachings. And they said, the day will come when the healing time comes, all 4 directions you need to come back. You got to set in a circle, red, yellow, black, and white. Each of you have a knowledge that is going to need it for this healing to take place. And they said, when you set in a circle, one of the first things you're going to realize is that the Creator did not make 4 races. You know, people always say, well, what race are you? Well, I'm this race. They said, there's only one race, the human race. And he said that when we are in the womb, it is in there that the Creator gives each one of us what they call our earth suit. Some suits are red, some yellow, some black, and then some white. Then we're born, and then that's how we walk around in our earth suit. And they said during this healing time, when we would sit in this circle, we would look at one another, and we wouldn't look at the suit. We'd look past the suit. We'd look inside of your heart. We look inside of that black person. We would say, wow, you love your children like I love my children. You're just a human being. And we look at the yellow people. We look at the gay people. We look at the people who are different than us, and we start to see, wow, we're just all a human race. That's who we are. And he said, you're going to start to see that realization. And so I asked them, I said, I don't see that as a healing time. How do we know? And so each one of those elders, they started to tell a story what their elders told them. I remember the very first elder, he said, this is what the old people told us. They told us the healing time was going to come. And they said, the reason it's going to come, they said, our earth, it's run by a set of natural laws. And that natural laws is interested in balance like this. It's always correcting. It wants balance and harmony. And if something goes out of balance too long, then the natural law will kick in to do something to correct for the mistake, to bring it back into balance. And they said, for us as Native people, they said, how we were treated, what happened to us, the death, the massacres, all these things that happened to us, they said it's not right. So they said, a healing times are going to come, and you're going to see a balance to take place. And we asked them, how do we know? The first elder, he said, this is when you know when it's going to happen, is he said, our elders told us the healing time will come when an eagle lands on the moon. So in that tribe, they was always looking at the moon to see if the eagle was landed. So the story was told about this eagle was going to land on the moon. Well, I was fortunate enough to be involved in a space program. And when they put the man on the moon, they put eagle feathers in that lunar module. And so it went up and it circled the Earth and it landed down on the moon. And the first words ever spoken from the moon, it said, the eagle has landed. And so in that tribe, they said, oh, now the healing time is here, that the eagle had landed on there. In another community, what they said, this is what the old people told us, they said that a spider would build a web around the earth, all the way around the earth, that spider would build it. And when it was done, they said a woman would come forth and she'd speak on that web and all the nation would hear her voice, which today we believe is the internet. We believe that that wire, that web that goes all the way around, that says there's a healing time is going to be here. In another community, what they said is you're going to see young people with old spirits. You're going to see young children. And it would be like elders, like they would say things, you go, where did you learn that? How did you know that to be true? And they said that you see that these young ones, because in the healing time, they said there would be people chosen that would be involved in the healing, that they would be going through the Creator's school first, maybe the school of hard knocks, and then you get into healing, and then you were going to come and be a part of this healing that was going to take place. And so what happened was, just like they said, all of a sudden, healing time started to take place. It started, one of the prophecies that they told us, they said, during this healing time, another tribe, what they said, a white buffalo calf will be born. And that white buffalo calf, it would turn to 4 colors, red, yellow, black, and white. And so in the early 1994, this white buffalo calf was born in Janesville, Wisconsin. And then shortly after it was born, the elders instructed us to build a hoop of 100 eagle feathers. And so this hoop was built, and on the rim had 4 colors, red, yellow, black, and white. And then the 100 feathers was hanging around on it. And so we took that hoop up by the white buffalo calf, and we had to bring the elders from the black direction, the yellow, the white, and the red. And so we brought elders from Africa. We brought elders from Tibet. We brought elders from Finland. They were called the Sami tribe. They was white people, but they kept a reindeer, and they were just, we didn't know there was white elders like that, like the old ways. They had their own language. They have the drum. The people around them don't like them. You know, it's very kind of familiar how things were. And then we had 26 of our people, and they talked just like they knew one another forever. And so they did a ceremony, and that little white buffalo calf, it come up and stood by the fence and watched when the ceremony was happening. And so they put into this hoop 4 powers. One was the powers to forgive the unforgivable. They said one of the things that's going to happen is we got to forgive. The second powers was the powers of unity. We got to be together, not separate. We got to help one another, all doing the same direction. The third was the powers of healing. They said during this time, a lot of us was wounded, and so we have to each heal ourselves. And the fourth was hope, the ability for the dream. So they did a ceremony, and they put that 4 powers in there, and they said that hoop would be like a radio tower. It would pulse all the time, just like the heartbeat. It would pulse out all these 4 gifts wherever it went. And so then they told us that we had to, that hoop wasn't mine. They said that hoop belongs to the people. And when they ask for their hoop, then you got to take it to them. And so since that time, we've traveled over 200,000 miles. When they ask for it, we put that hoop in the old res car, and off we go, taking it there. We've been all over Canada and Alaska, and different places that it has been. And so these were the things that were starting to happen in the healing time. And so things started to go really a lot. Thousands of us was getting sober, not dozens, just thousands of us was getting sober. Young people getting sober, older ones. A lot of culture was coming back, sober powwows, sober events. The Indian conferences is no longer cool to have drinking going on at the conferences. So there was another change started to take place too. One happened with AIM, and now this other one happened with the prophecies. And so it wasn't too long ago, the problems in our community changed. Again, once more, the enemy showed up. And at one time for years, it was just alcohol. But then all of a sudden it was meth, and there was heroin, and states were legalizing things, and there was prescription drugs, and there were other things started to happen. And so once again, they came out with the prophecies. They told us what was going on. And they said, if you want to know what to do, you got to always watch nature. Nature will tell you everything. Nature is your teacher. And they said, during this time, what you're going to see, they said, there's certain birds. You watch these birds, and when the enemy comes, they flock together. And no leader, but they turn to the left, they turn to the right, they dive simultaneously. Everything turns like this. They organize and take different shapes. And they said even the fish, when the shark comes along, certain fish, they swarm together like this, and there's no leader. They just all change directions at the same time. And they said, this is what's going to happen now. They said, you're going to see this type of activity take place. And then out of that, that's where you're going to see the change people come. Out of that flock, when it's done, all of a sudden you see 3 or 4 people are going to come up, the chosen ones that are going to be helping lead through the new crisis. And so I think we started to see things like a day after the election in the United States here, a day afterwards, millions of women formed all around the globe. There was no leader, but all of a sudden they just go, shoo, thousands and thousands of women formed during that next day. When you saw what happened down at that school in Florida, there was kids, they formed all across all over. They started, this grouping started to take place. And he said, that's what you have to watch. And out of that, that's where you're going to see the leaders are going to start to come. So they told us to pay attention. And so we come up to the time now of 2019. Another enemy came upon us. This one we couldn't see. But this enemy was like the others. It started to come to our communities in many places, not just us this time, but it came to the red, the yellow, the black, and the white. And I always, hanging around these elders, I always remember Thomas Bianco, who was the Hopi man. He always used to tell a story. He said, there's going to be 3 great shakings. He said, the first great shaking, the signs that they were told is, they said, a black bug would crawl up on the earth, and then all of a sudden it would take off and fly in the air. And shortly during that time is when you'd see the first great shaking. And as he went on to explain it, he said that was the Model A going around on the earth, and then the airplane. All of a sudden that black bug, it turned into an airplane, started flying around. And he said that great shaking, it was to tell us, wake up. You got to be in harmony. You cannot be against one another. You got to be together. And they said if we didn't listen, then there'd be a next great shaking. And so what he told us, that was World War II, that there was a shaking took place, and there was a sign. They said that the sun would rise in the west and the people would change in the east. And so what that meant was the sun in the west, that was when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, that rising star, or how the Japanese flag and stuff is. And then the change in the east. We used to have a symbol that was designed a certain way. It meant a people. But then all of a sudden, it was the same symbol as the Nazis, but it was turned to the side. So they said a change in the people would happen to take place. And they said there would be that shaking. Men, we got to wake up, pay attention that the earth is telling us you're out of harmony. You're hurting, you're putting poison in our water. You're not paying attention. So I always have this in the back of my mind, what these old people told, a long time ago, about what is going on. And so we got this virus now. It's coming to our communities. Just because of the way that white bison is, we get a lot of calls. We call some people, and people are scared. People are anxious. It's not just here, but you watch the news report and you watch all these things going on, and then they say, what is it that we're supposed to do? You see, what can we do? And so what we need to realize is that we now know what happened to us as a people from the boarding school. We didn't know this till Maria Braveheart, Dr. Braveheart, and Ed Duran, and some of those educated researchers, they started to research what happened in the past, and what they found out that trauma that those little kids experienced, the way that works is it recorded in a level of the DNA. So when that goes into your DNA and you get together with somebody, you make a baby, then that DNA, what's in there, that makes into the baby that you make. And so they told us that intergenerational trauma, it can be carried down from one generation onto the next. So at certain times, from 1492 on, there's times that we've had traumatic events have taken place in our communities. For example, in California, for example, the state of California put a bounty on the Indians there. When the gold miners couldn't make money at gold, they would hunt and they could get paid bounty for the. Could you imagine being married, have some children, have a partner, and you have people hunting you? That's a traumatic event. And there were other things that happened. By 1920, 99% of the native population had been wiped out. That was a genocide that happened before that. And so what we have started to hear now with this COVID-19 is some of the elders are being re-traumatized, that what they're carrying inside is coming out of a memory of something, and they're getting scared and they're getting anxious. So what is it that we need to do during these times like this? We do what we've always done. When we take a look at how the universe is designed, the Creator put a knowledge inside of each salmon. And so when that salmon is born, it swims out to the ocean. It stays out there for 4 years. Then somehow it knows time is up, and then it has to come back, find a river where it swam down, and then it's going to swim back up that river to lay its eggs. So inside of that salmon has a blueprint. This is what all salmon do, and that's what they have to do. They don't have choice. So when a salmon acts like a salmon doesn't go around saying, oh, I wish I was a moose. It don't want to be no moose because it's acting like its blueprint. And so we need to know every plant, it has that blueprint in it. That's its medicine. All of our sage, all of our cedar, the medicines that we use, the corn pollen that different tribes use that the earth gave to us, it isn't just a plant. That when we burn this sage, when we light it, that medicine comes out of that sage. It's a power that allows us to enter into the spiritual world. And it's not an Indian thing. This is a human thing. That plant grows all over for the human beings. Or if we burn our cedar, the cedar is not just a tree like leaves or things. This has a power in it. It has a medicine, we call it. That's the word we would use as medicine. But when we light this, I was told one time by the elders, they said when they talk about creation, they said the physical world is only 5% of creation. 95% of the creation exists in the spiritual world. Most of what we need is in the spiritual world. It's not in the physical world, but our eye thinks this is all there is. And then there was a time when we knew that we went to the spiritual world for everything. That's what we knew in the old days. And then through the colonialization process, the boarding school, they taught us that that's not true. You know, that if you want to find God, just go to the church for 1 hour a day, and that's where it is. Where we found out that's not how the old people told us. So when we have these tough times, we need to go to this medicine. Now, the tougher the times, the stronger the medicine is. It's not like just 1% medicine. When tough times, it makes more power. It gets stronger. But we got to be able to use this medicine like this. And so when we are going through these times like this, we got to know some things are going on. And I have this friend one time, I'll tell the story quick. And I had 6 brothers and sisters. I had one sister, Laura. We was close. Ever since we were little bitty kids, we was always close, always together, and always, she could finish my sentences. That was that kind of a sister. And she got cancer. And so she went through all kinds of different things with it. And a day came when the doctor said, there's nothing more we can do. He said she's going to have to make her journey. And so we prepared her. She was married to a guy, a nice guy. And so we prepared things as comfortable as we could. And at that time, I was working my 12 steps in AA, the program I was in, and I was always walking around heavy. There was something in my heart, I could feel a pressure down on it. It was like a heavy heart or something, and I couldn't stay focused, and I was doing different things like making a deal with God. You know, I'd say, okay, if you make her well, this is what I'll do. No, she's a good person, you know. Why would you do this to her? And I have all these things going on, and I couldn't get clear. But I was, and she was strong, so she fought to stay alive too, you know. And I had this Indian guy, or Ojibwe guy from White Earth. He really helped me, and I was sharing with him what I was going through, and he said, "You are experiencing something called anticipatory grief." And I go, "What in the heck is anticipatory grief?" He said, "It's a hidden grief. When you anticipate, like she's going to die, you don't grieve her death yet. You are grieving because you're going to be grieving. You're anticipating, oh, what's going to happen to her, and what's the funeral, and how about this, and how about that." And when he started to explain that to me, I started to get an understanding of what was going on with me. I never had heard that before. Many other calls that we get from the community, that's what they are. They're scared. They're hoping it's not their children. They're hoping it's not their uncles and their aunties. They're anticipating because the death rate is coming in so fast, and the thing is spread through breath and through touch, and it's hitting everybody. And I know right now we are doing some work with the Navajo Nation down there. We put together, we're working with some people there, and they asked us, could we go and get 2,000 masks made? Could we get 1,000 masks made for the adults? Could we get 1,000 masks made for the children? And so that's what we're working on, things like that, is to see if we can get these masks so that they can stop that spread of that virus among themselves. And last night we had some good news. There's women in prison in California, Native women in prison, and they got word to us they're going to make 400 masks. The warden, they got a little sewing machine, and the warden says if you bring the cloth and pre-cut it, because they can't have scissors, but if we pre-cut the cloth, and they're going to make these masks. So one thing that we have to know is, when we go through these tough times, where do we look? If we look at what's going on the TV, to me, it's very confusing, because some of those people up there, they're lying. They're not telling you the truth of what really is going on. So then it causes a person to go look for themselves. And so it's kind of hard when you go through a crisis. What you want to know is what the truth is. That's what you kind of want to know. But we're not being told the truth by the ones that's supposed to be telling it. So what we need to do is we need to rely on what we used to rely on. Just as a salmon has a blueprint, we inside of ourselves, we have that blueprint too. We have the blueprint of the human being. Inside of every human being is an innate knowledge of your own well-being. If you want to know how you're supposed to be, don't go to Google. Look inside of yourself. Light your medicine. Pray with that medicine. And I was told by Johnny Looking Cloud, that guy that entered for me, as he said, one time I went to him and I said, Johnny Looking Cloud, I said, teach me to pray. I said, I want to know how to pray. And he said, okay. He said, I'll tell you how to pray. As he said, you gotta pray when the sun rises up. And he said, when the sun first hits the surface, that's when you start to pray until the sun is full circle. He said, there's a window. He said, when the sun comes up and it starts, he said, the birds wake up and they start singing. The dew starts melting. There's all kinds of powers that come in during that time that you pray. And he said, after the sun raises up and you sleep in, he said, the window is not there. It's a different kind of a prayer. And so at first I had a hard time getting up because I wasn't used to being up at sunrise. But then I found out as I started to do what he said, something started to happen. There was a window of time there. So one of the suggestions we're going to make when the community is called now is get up in the morning in your community at sunrise and take your drum, find a tree, and you make a tobacco tie. Put that tobacco in your tie, and then you put a prayer in that tobacco tie, and then you sing a song for the people, for the healing. Then you take that tobacco and you hang it in a tree. You got to do that for one cycle of the moon, 28 times. That you get up there at sunrise, you make a tobacco tie, you put that prayer in there for the people, you cry for the people. You light your medicine as you're singing that song, and you put that tobacco tie in a tree. That's what we was told that would happen. So that's what we're going to start suggesting for the ones that want to do it that way. We've had other communities over different things have done that, and the community will start to change. And so one is we need to look within ourselves, that when you look inside yourself, it isn't just your blueprint, but you have your ancestors are inside of you, your grandma and grandpas. How I know it's true is I was raised by my grandpa from when I was a young boy, and he was my best friend. And we learned to pick medicines, and we went in the woods, and I learned to hunt, all the things I learned from him. And he was probably the best, most influential human in my life. And then when he passed on, he told me he was going to pass on. So I came to him, and we went fishing at our favorite place. And that night, when we got done fishing, he gave me his lucky fishing pole. He said, this is that pole that I want you to have. And so we went home and we cooked that fish, and then we ate it. And the next morning, he made his journey to the spirit world. But to this day, when I'm doing something wrong, he had a smell about him that, I don't know, it was a grandpa smell or something, just the way he was. When I'm doing something wrong, I can smell that darn smell that he had. And I go, oh no, grandpa's, excuse me, grandpa's watching. And so I know a lot of you know exactly what I'm saying, is that we got to not look for what we're supposed to do, but look inside. That blueprint is in there. The elders are in there. Those elders that have prayed for us, because we have a responsibility in this crisis. This crisis is going to get over, and another one will come down the road. We have to pray just like how they prayed for us to have the courage and the knowledge to go through this. We got to pray for that next generation. We got to pray so that they're walking on this earth on our prayers. And that we pray because we go through this thing with courage. We go through this thing with the knowledge. I heard a beautiful thing this afternoon from a young girl. We was on a Zoom like this, and we were talking about this virus thing. And she said in their community, what they're looking at is they're talking about how their community in the old days looked at death. There's a part of a cycle of things. Even though you're sad, it's something that happens. So they were going back to their old knowledge, their old songs, their old ceremonies, the old prayers, using the medicine. And the young people are looking forward to using it because they're scared too. They're watching TV and they're hearing these things that's not true, etc. And so they're looking to us. What is it we're supposed to do? So I believe that some of you are chosen. Some of you were chosen even when you were little. Some of you maybe went through domestic violence and healed yourself, and now you're doing the work in the community. Kind of going through the teachers to the creators school. I know that we do a lot of work around alcoholism and recovery. When I know what that's like, I was a blackout drinker. I did things to my family, my children. I did all that stuff, but I found out how to heal from it too. A lot of people before me showed me how to do that. And so a lot of times the thing that is the worst part that will happen to you is going to be a blessing, in that future. And so what I see is we're being tested. There's a testing time going on. I think that we're fortunate that some other cultures, other directions, they don't have the medicines that we have. They try to convince us sometimes that the medicine is gone. What I'm watching now is, you know, I always say I watch the communities, and we have elders and we have old people. And some of the old people, they were really wounded in that boarding school. They were really hurt. They were beat up. In those days, they had no place to go. Didn't have counselors or 800 numbers. They didn't have none of that like we have today. But I'm noticing the 40-year-old people, they're the ones that are learning the ceremonies. They're the ones that are going into the wilderness, going into the woods, into the mountains, praying for the ceremony, that they can bring that ceremony back and know what it is that we're supposed to do. That has always been our guidance, has been going to our Creator, going back into that spiritual world where 95% of creation, you know, exists. And so that's how the elders always spoke to me ever since I can remember, how they said what it was we're supposed to do. And some of you are thinking, well, I'm too young, and some of you saying, well, I'm half Indian, I'm half white, or I'm part this, I'm part that, or I'm gay, or I'm this, or I'm that. If you are chosen, it doesn't matter how you were made. You were made that way because the Creator wants you as you are to learn the culture, to come back and to help the people. That's how He made it, how He made it for us. And so I just want to really encourage us to, you know, we are medicine to each other. That noise that comes out of our mouth, the words, we can be good medicine or bad medicine. We can be both. And so we got to look inside of ourselves every morning at sunrise. If we are going to, it's a sacrifice to get up to pray at sunrise for a while, to pray for the Navajo people. We just got some messages from the Apaches, and there's 5 of the Pueblos are struggling. It ain't over for us. Testing time is coming, and so we got to really count on the things that we know is true, you know, things that are going to work. So I'll just close with this prayer that I learned. It's just a short prayer, and I'll just say this prayer. It says it's a thank you prayer to the Creator, and it says, Creator, thank you for all you've given to me. Creator, thank you for all that you've left me or taken from me. And Creator, thank you all what you left me. And what we left is the culture, you people, the ones that helped me stay in recovery and stay on the track. And our people are lucky to have people like you that's sacrificing and working in the communities these days. So I just want to say thank you very much for me being able to share a little bit with Indigenous Ways. And again, if those 2 girls come after you, you may as well just agree, give them what they want, because it's hard to tell them no. They're 2 of the most loveful women that I know. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Don. This is awesome. You are such a beautiful, beautiful brother, beautiful elder. And what I love about you, Don, is I've heard you so many times. And every time you share, it's a different story, as you have so many strands and ways and what the elders have taught you, handed down, that you're sharing with us. And now you're an elder. And I'm headed in that direction myself. So I'm going to be taking your stories and sharing them down the road myself to help communities. So thank you. This is what it's all about. And everybody, if you have smudge tonight, before you go to bed, pull out your sage, pull out your cedar, say some prayers, and let's make it work for all of us, this isolation that our Mother Earth so desperately needs. If we don't get it this time, I don't know what it's going to take, how much more Mother Earth is going to take from us, crapping all over her with the emissions and the smog. And it's just, Mother Earth is very happy right now. People are hurting. It's coming at a cost, and I'm very sorry for that. So I'm just going to wrap it up now. Thank you, Don, and thank you all that have joined us. Thank you, Chandra and Jim, our ASL interpreters. Thank you for all of our communities, diversified. We have all colors in tonight. We have deaf, hard of hearing. We have indigenous. We got all kinds of people, all colors here tonight with us, and that's what it's all about. Our blood all is red. Walls down, no discrimination. We are human. We are five-fingered people. We have an epithelial thumb. So we have ration. We can make choices a little bit different than our four-legged brother, animal relatives, and the fish people. We have ration, and let's make wise decisions. And I'm just going to run you real quickly, those of you that are new to this, to take us through our Zoom links, our websites. This first one here is our Indigenous Zoom link. So we have Wednesdays and Saturday nights. And then this Saturday, we've got Tret Fury, and she's amazing. Following that, we have Ora Barlow from the Takaha. She's from the Maori lands of North Island, New Zealand, Aotearoa. Tret Fury's been playing music, writing songs for over 50 years. She's amazing. Check them out. And I want to thank really quickly our sponsors, First Peoples Fund, National Endowment of the Arts, City of Santa Fe Arts and Culture, and New Mexico Arts. And then I also would like to tell you there's an easy way to donate if you want to help us continue to do this and support our brothers and sisters that are coming in with messages and our ASL interpreters. You can take a picture of this PayPal or Venmo. We've got an old-fashioned postal service you can send to IndigenousWays, P.O. Box 4073, Santa Fe, New Mexico. We've got indigenousways.org/donate, and we are a nonprofit, 501c3. Thank you all again, and I am going to pass it over to Elena.
Great, thanks for that. And thank you so much for that, Don. There's quite a lot of messages in the chat box of how you have touched and continue to touch so many people with your medicines, knowledge, wisdoms. Thank you. So I just wanted to weave in one of the things that Don talked about was we do what we have always done. And we do what we have always done. And in this wisdom circle, bringing people in, sharing their prayer, sharing their wisdom, sharing their knowledge. As we go through these times, one of the most important things, as we've always known as Indigenous people, is that we do this together. And that's the importance of bringing this forum together. So I want to personally thank each and every one of you for beaming in from wherever you have. And if you're able to access the chat box, I want to encourage you just to type in where you are beaming in from at this moment and why you are doing that. There's so much deep gratitude from everyone. So on our IndigenousWays.org website, if this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And what we have in the website on the virtual events, all of these series have been recorded. They all have ASL interpreters on them. Last week we had Taz from the San Ildefonso Pueblo. She was sharing how to reconnect from microtraumas, what has been going on. Mr. Don talked about the integrational traumas, and how do we work through those, or they become stuck in us. And so one of the things that he shared is experience, strength, and hope of what he has been doing and creating whitebison.org. So if you go there, you can donate to help his organization, White Bison Buffalo. And if you're watching the recording, it's just zapping across the screen. Or if you're listening on the podcast, thank you. But you can donate to the amazing things that the whitebison.org are doing in the communities. I also want to thank everyone. We've had a lot of people that have been giving us feedback either live through the Zoom that we're doing now or through the videos that they have been watching. This video will be posted in the next 24 hours. So if you want to get hold of this video to rewatch or to share Don's medicine to your family members or other community members, you can go to our webpage, IndigenousWays.org, and down the bottom there's a link to our website. Or just keep an eye out on our electronic sites where that will be. But please share the videos, share this wonderful medicines that these incredible presenters have been blessing us with. And more importantly, thank you. Thank you so much for beaming in where you have come from, sharing your synergy, your love, and your energy with us. We can't do this without you, and we really appreciate in this very short period of time when we popped up online, the beautiful feedback that we've been receiving as we are growing together as an online community of what your needs are, who you'd like to see either on the Saturday concert series or the Wednesday. So we're almost finished planning our May, but if you would like someone to come in or yourself, go to the website in the virtual events, and there's a little email there where you can make that suggestion and give them, let us know their contacts, because we'd like to have them on so they can share so generously. I also want to take the time and thank you in this time for staying safe. Now, we also know a lot of the communities that we of service of have no running water. So, you know, this whole thing of washing hands is a big issue. And so I want to thank each and every one of you for doing the little things, which are huge things, in your communities in keeping not only you safe, but your family members safe and members in your communities safe. And I want to give a big shout out to all the essential workers, our first responders, the police, the people in the hospital, being on the front line and doing the service that they've been doing to keep everyone safe and all of that. Our prayers, our hearts are with you all. And so as Don was sharing, we do what we have always done, you know, whether that be of sharing our stories, our song, our messages, our essence of spirit, that if you have a person that pops into your head and you haven't seen or heard from them, call them. Because one of the most important things for us at this time is to stay connected. You know, if you have neighbors, see if they need any help or assistance, because the only way that we can do this is together. So I want to thank everyone for beaming on. It's been a real blessing and honor seeing everyone, Fort Collins. Hey, Liz, you know, we've got people from Canada that have been in. Glorietta, thank you for that. Really great to have you. I also know we've had 8 people, deaf and hard of hearing, from the community here. Thank you so much and blessing us and coming in online. And thank you again, everyone, for being here. Thank you to our interpreters making it possible. And I'm going to go back to Tash.
All right, and I just want to finish off by saying that we have a wonderful guest tonight from the Canada lands. His name is Andrew, and he's Cree from the Mesquachis Nation, and we would like to go ahead and wrap up this evening with Mr. Andrew, and he is a beautiful brother from just over the way, Canada. It's not that far here compared to where Elena's from. And that little beautiful fur-legged came from the Navajo Nation yesterday. She doesn't have a name yet. And our little cat, and she comes from a Navajo Dutch family in Fort Defiance. So thank you, Yazis, for gifting us with this beautiful cat. We will love her as best as we can. And Creator's blessings to all of you, and I'm going to hand it over to our beautiful brother, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you. I love this opportunity to get to know more of my Nahio brothers and sisters from more than just Canada. It's beautiful the gift we have with technology it's unforgettable. But I just wanted to add to that prayer. I want to pray to our earth for healing, prayer for our family and friends. I would also like to know that prayer for our prayers to go in the right direction, in the right place and not the wrong place, and guide them to where they were supposed to go, not where they don't want to go. I appreciate it. Thank you. Ota aski tatataminan. Hi hi. Thank you.
And our beautiful relatives that live on towards Madrid here in New Mexico said a beautiful rainbow is going across the eastern horizon, and the wind is in the willows, and Mother Earth is happy and spreading her power. Thank you, Yost and Erica. That's a beautiful message. So many beautiful messages tonight, everybody. We love you all. Thank you very much.
Bring everyone on.
Okay, everybody, come on, go ahead and unmute and show your faces. Let's come together and honor Mr. Don with our love.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Love you, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, much like
Jimmy Gwitch.
Thank you. Woo! Colorado.
All right, let's give it up for Mr.
Give it up for Don. Right on.
Touch the earth.